The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the beach as Dr. Mai walked along the shoreline, her equipment bag heavy on her shoulder. She had been studying the unusual rock formations along Japan's southern coast for months now, but today felt different. The tide was unusually low, revealing cave openings that were normally hidden beneath the waves. "Hey, Professor," called out Raj, her research assistant, waving from near the cave entrance. "You need to see this." His voice echoed with excitement that made her quicken her pace across the wet sand. The cave opening was narrow, barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through at a time. As they switched on their waterproof lights, the beam caught something that made them both freeze. The walls weren't just rough stone. They were covered in strange, swirling patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint bluish glow. "I've never seen anything like this," May whispered, running her fingers over the markings. They weren't carved or painted. They seemed to be part of the rock itself, like veins in marble. But these patterns were too regular, too intentional to be natural. As they ventured deeper into the cave system, the air grew colder and the sound of dripping water echoed around them. Their lights revealed chamber after chamber, each wall covered in more of the mysterious symbols. Some seemed to tell stories, figures that looked almost human but not quite, and shapes that could have been ships or stars. "Look at this," Raj called out, his voice trembling slightly. He was pointing his light at what appeared to be a massive mural. Unlike the other markings, this one showed clear scenes, a great battle in the sky, strange vessels descending from the stars, and what looked like a massive ship rising from the ocean depths. Mai pulled out her specialized scanning equipment, hoping to capture detailed images of the markings. But the moment she switched on the scanner, something extraordinary happened. The symbols began to pulse with energy, their blue glow intensifying until it filled the entire chamber. The ground beneath their feet vibrated gently, and a low humming sound filled the air. It wasn't threatening. If anything, it felt like the cave itself was awakening, responding to their presence after a very long sleep. "Professor," Raj said, his voice barely above a whisper, "the scanner's picking up energy readings unlike anything we've ever recorded. This isn't just some ancient artwork. There's active energy flowing through these symbols." As they worked to document their discovery, neither of them noticed the small drone floating silently at the cave entrance, its military markings barely visible in the fading light. Back at a naval base several miles away, a group of officers watched their feed with growing concern. Hours passed like minutes as Mee and Raj worked to document everything. They took samples of the glowing material, recorded the energy signatures, and photographed every inch of the mysterious markings. But it was when May attempted to match the symbols against known ancient writing systems that things got even stranger. "This doesn't match anything in our databases," she muttered, scrolling through her tablet. "Not Egyptian, not Sumerian, not even theoretical alien language patterns from the SETI database. This is something entirely new. Or perhaps something very, very old." As the sun began to set outside, the glow from the symbols grew stronger and the humming intensified. Somewhere deep in the cave system, something was awakening, something that had been waiting for thousands of years to be found. Just as they were preparing to leave, Mee's equipment picked up a massive energy spike. The cave walls seemed to vibrate with power, and in the deepest chamber, a new symbol appeared, burning itself into the rock before their eyes. It wasn't just a random pattern, it was a message, and somehow, deep in her bones, May knew it was a warning. The discovery in that cave would change everything, not just for May and Raj, but for all of humanity. They had just stumbled upon the first piece of a puzzle that would reveal Earth's true history, and with it, a threat that had been lurking in the shadows of human civilization for millennia. Word spread quickly through the scientific community as images of the glowing symbols made their way around the globe. Within days, the remote Japanese beach had transformed into a bustling research site. Tents dotted the shoreline, and cables snaked their way into the cave system, powering banks of computers and scanning equipment. Dr. Mai stood at her makeshift desk, rubbing her tired eyes as she stared at the latest translations attempt. Around her, a team of the world's top language experts worked in focused silence. The cave's symbols had stumped every conventional translation method, but they were starting to notice patterns. "I think I've got something," called out Dr. Singh, waving a tablet excitedly. His usually neat hair was messy from running his hands through it in frustration. "Look at these repeating patterns. they're not just symbols, they're mathematical equations. The breakthrough came when they stopped treating the markings as a traditional language and started viewing them as a complex code. Each symbol wasn't just a letter or word, it was a complete concept, layered with mathematical precision. The humming from deep within the cave had grown stronger over the past few days. Sometimes, late at night when the site was quiet, researchers would swear they could hear something that sounded almost like whispers coming from the deeper chambers. As the team worked to decode the message, strange things began happening around the world. Ancient sites, previously dormant for thousands of years, started showing signs of activity. The pyramids in Egypt emitted low-frequency pulses that matched the cave's energy signature. Similar signals were detected from underwater structures near the coast of India. It's like they're all connected, Rage explained during a video conference with research teams around the world. These sites, they're not just monuments. They're some kind of network, and our discovery has woken them up. The first breakthrough in translation came at midnight. The team had been working non-stop for hours when the computers suddenly aligned all the data. The message was both fascinating and terrifying. "Listen to this," Dr. May said, her voice shaking slightly as she read from the translated text. "They call themselves the Nexarians. They claim they created us, all of us, the whole human race." The cave walls seemed to pulse brighter as she spoke, as if responding to the truth finally being spoken aloud. The translation revealed that Earth had been seeded with human life as part of a grand experiment. The Nexarians had shaped early human development, guiding our evolution from the shadows. But the most chilling part of the message was yet to come. The prophecy spoke of a harvest, a time when the Nexarians would return to claim what they had created. They had been watching, waiting for humanity to reach a specific level of technological advancement. According to these calculations, Dr. Singh said, pointing to a complex series of symbols, they're coming back. Soon, very soon. The military presence at the site grew stronger as the implications of the discovery became clear. High-ranking officials from various nations arrived daily, huddling in closed meetings as they discussed what this meant for Earth's defense. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, all the equipment in the cave suddenly went dead. The symbols began glowing brighter than ever before, and a new message appeared on the walls, writing itself in lines of blue fire. The translation was immediate this time, as if the message wanted to be understood. The experiment is complete. The harvest approaches, but hope remains in the depths. Deep beneath the waves, something ancient stirred. Military summer stations across the Pacific began picking up an impossible reading, a massive structure hidden for thousands of years, waiting to be awakened. But there was something else in the message, something that gave the research team hope. The Nexarians, for all their power and advanced technology, had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated their creation. Humanity had grown in ways they hadn't predicted, developed strengths they hadn't anticipated. As Dr. May looked at the final lines of the translation, a small smile crossed her face. The prophecy might speak of humanity's end, but it also held the key to their survival. They just had to find it before the Nexarians returned to claim their prize. The Pacific Ocean churned restlessly under dark clouds as military vessels from different nations gathered around a single point. On the bridge of the lead ship, Commander Lee stood perfectly still, staring at the sonar readings that had brought them all here. "It's massive," whispered Lieutenant Park, adjusting the sonar equipment again. "Whatever's down there, it's bigger than any submarine ever built. The main structure alone is nearly a mile long." Dr. May and her team had been flown in by helicopter the previous night. She hadn't slept, too busy comparing the energy signatures from the underwater anomaly with the readings from the cave. They matched perfectly. "We're picking up movement," one of the sonar operators called out. "The structure, it's shifting." The ocean's surface began to bubble, and waves grew larger. Fish jumped out of the water in massive schools, as if fleeing from something below. The assembled ships rocked in the increasingly choppy waters. Through special underwater cameras, they watched in awe as massive sections of what they had thought was the ocean floor began to move. Layers of rock and centuries of coral growth fell away, revealing gleaming metal beneath. The structure wasn't just a building or a base, it was a ship, a massive battleship unlike anything ever seen before. "Look at the design," Dr. May said, pointing to patterns visible on the hull. They match the symbols from the cave exactly. This isn't Nexarian technology. This was built by humans, by our ancestors. As they watched, more of the ancient vessel revealed itself. Its hull seemed to be made of a material that shifted colors like oil on water, somehow still pristine after thousands of years underwater. What looked like weapon ports lined its sides, but they were unlike any conventional weapons. They appeared to be made of crystal or some other transparent material that pulsed with internal light. Deep underwater, exploration teams in advanced submarines approached the massive ship. Their lights revealed more details. The vessel was covered in the same glowing symbols they'd found in the cave, but these were active, moving across the hull like lines of flowing energy. "We found an entrance," reported one of the submarine teams. It looks like it's expecting us." A massive doorway had opened in the side of the ship, with lights coming on automatically as the submarines approached. Inside, they found chambers filled with technology that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements. Everything was pristine, as if it had been sealed away just yesterday, not thousands of years ago. The central command center of the ship was a sight that left even the most experienced military personnel speechless. A massive room filled with crystalline structures that seemed to respond to human presence, lighting up as people approached. At its center stood what could only be the captain's station, surrounded by holographic displays that flickered to life as Dr. May approached. "It's incredible," she braved, looking at the ancient controls. "Our ancestors, they were so much more advanced than we ever imagined. They'd built this to protect Earth, to fight back against the Nexarians." But getting the ship operational wouldn't be easy. The technology was far beyond current human understanding, and they had no idea how much time was left before the Nexarians returned. The ship's systems seemed to be waiting for something, or someone, specific. As teams of scientists and military personnel explored more of the vessel, they discovered something extraordinary in the ship's database. The vessel had a name, written in those same ancient symbols: Terra's Shield. It wasn't just a battleship, it was humanity's last line of defense, built by an advanced civilization that had faced the Nexarians before. The most surprising discovery came when they found the ship's log. The last entry, written thousands of years ago, was a message to the future. "To our children's children, when they return, you must be ready. We built this ship with everything we knew, everything we were. It will recognize you. It will teach you. But most importantly, it will show you that humanity is so much more than what they made us to be." Time was running out. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the Nexarians were approaching. But for the first time since discovering the truth about humanity's origins, there was hope. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, humanity's greatest weapon had awakened, ready to help them fight for their freedom. The world's governments argued behind closed doors while time slipped away like sand through an hourglass. In observatories across the globe, astronomers tracked the approaching objects that had appeared beyond Pluto's orbit. They moved in ways that defied the laws of physics, accelerating and changing direction at impossible speeds. "We've got maybe 2 weeks," said Dr. Kim, the head astronomer at the Mountain Observatory. She pointed to the latest tracking data, her hand trembling slightly. "They're not even trying to hide anymore. These objects, the Nexarian ships, they're heading straight for Earth." Meanwhile, beneath the Pacific waves, Dr. May and Commander Lee led a desperate race to understand Terra's shield. The ancient battleship responded to human presence, but activating its full systems proved challenging. It was like trying to read a book written in your language, but with words you'd never seen before. "The ship wants to help us," Dr. May explained during an emergency briefing. "We can feel it. Every time we figure out one system, it shows us how to access 2 more. It's teaching us, but we need more time." Inside the massive vessel, research teams worked around the clock. The ship's corridors hummed with activity as scientists and military personnel from dozens of nations worked together, all previous rivalries forgotten in the face of the coming threat. "Look at this," called out Lieutenant Park, waving from a newly discovered chamber. The room was filled with what looked like training pods, their surfaces gleaming with the same shifting colors as the ship's hull. I think it wants to show us how to fight." The pods turned out to be simulators designed to teach human pilots how to operate the ship's advanced weapons and defense systems. But they did more than that. They contained the tactical knowledge of the ancient civilization that had built Terra's shield, sharing combat strategies that had been successful against the Nexarians before. As the teams trained, strange things began happening to those who spent the most time interfacing with the ship's systems. They started understanding the ancient symbols without translation. Some reported dreams filled with battles they'd never fought, memories of a war they'd never seen. The ship isn't just teaching us to fight, Dr. May realized one night, after waking from another vivid dream. It's sharing the experiences of the original crew. Everything they knew, everything they learned during the First War, it's all stored in the ship's memory. But just as they began making real progress, the news they'd been dreading arrived. The Nexarian fleet had crossed Jupiter's orbit. They were moving faster now, and all attempts at communication had been met with silence. Military leaders around the world mobilized their forces, knowing their most advanced weapons would be useless against the coming threat. Their only hope lay with Terra's shield and the handful of people learning to operate it. "We've found something else," Dr. May announced during an emergency meeting. Her eyes were bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. The ship's main computer contains files about Earth's defense network, ancient installations hidden all around the planet. They're like the cave in Japan, but much more powerful. Commander Lee studied the data with growing hope. If we can activate these installations, they'll form a planetary shield. But we need more time to decode the activation sequence. The tension grew as reports came in from around the solar system. The Nexarian fleet had passed Mars, their ships now visible through Earth's most powerful telescopes. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, their vessels moving through space like schools of fish through water. Inside Terra's shield, the training continued with renewed urgency. The ship's systems were coming online one by one, each activation bringing them closer to full combat readiness. But would they be ready in time? Late one night, as Dr. May worked at decoding another set of instructions, all the ship's systems suddenly pulsed with bright light. On screens throughout the vessel, a new message appeared, written in both ancient symbols and modern language. Primary systems at 60% capacity. Threat level, maximum. Time remaining until Nexarian arrival, 72 hours. Initiating emergency protocol, Operation Daybreak. The final countdown had begun. Humanity had 3 days to master technology it had forgotten existed, to remember how to fight an enemy it didn't know it had. But for the first time since the Nexarians' approach was detected, there was real hope. Terra's shield was awakening, and with it, humanity's chance for survival. Operation Daybreak began with a pulse of energy that rippled through Terra's shield, awakening systems that had slept for millennia. The ship's AI stirred to full consciousness, its presence filling the command center with a soft blue glow. "Welcome, children of Earth," the AI spoke, its voice carrying both wisdom and warmth. "I am the guardian, keeper of humanity's legacy. Before I can grant you full access to this vessel's capabilities, you must prove yourselves worthy." Dr. Mai stepped forward, her heart racing. "Worthy? But the Nexarians are almost here. We don't have time for tests." The Guardian's response echoed through the chamber. "It is precisely because of the approaching threat that you must be tested. The power within this ship was nearly misused once before. We cannot risk such a thing happening again." The first test began without warning. The command center's walls seemed to dissolve, surrounding everyone with a three-dimensional display of Earth's history. But this wasn't the history they knew. This was humanity's true past, showing both the greatness and the darkness the Nexarians had built into their creation. "Your ancestors fought not just the Nexarians," the Guardian explained, "but also the violent impulses coded into their own DNA. Before you can command this ship, you must prove you've evolved beyond these limitations." Throughout the ship, similar tests began. In the engineering section, Lieutenant Park and her team faced puzzles that required them to think beyond conventional physics. The weapons control team discovered that the ship's defense systems wouldn't activate until they demonstrated they could choose mercy over destruction. "Don't you see?" Dr. May realized, watching her colleagues work through their challenges. "The ship isn't just testing our abilities, it's testing our humanity." The Guardian presented them with increasingly complex scenarios. Each test forced them to balance military necessity with moral choice, technological power with ethical responsibility. It wasn't enough to know how to fight, they had to prove they knew when not to. Hours passed like minutes as the teams worked through their trials. In the simulator pods, pilots learned to fly with their minds as much as their hands, connecting with the ship on a level deeper than mere technology. "Your kind has surprised us," the Guardian commented as another test was completed successfully. "You've grown in ways the Nexarians never predicted. Where they programmed aggression, you've learned compassion. Where they designed obedience, you've developed free will." But the most challenging test came near the end. The Guardian created a scenario where the team had to choose between guaranteed victory over the Nexarians and saving innocent lives. It was Dr. Mai who found the third option, a solution that required sacrifice but protected both humanity and their principles. That, the Guardian announced, its voice filled with something like pride, is exactly what we hoped to see. The ship's systems began powering up fully, its weapons charging, its shields strengthening. The ancient technology recognized its new crew not just as operators, but as worthy inheritors of its power. "Your ancestors built this ship," the Guardian explained, "not just as a weapon, but as a key to unlock humanity's true potential. The Nexarians believed they could control human evolution. They were wrong. Deep within the ship's core, something awakened, technology that could free humanity from its genetic programming, breaking the last chains the Nexarians had placed on human potential. "We offer you this gift," the Guardian said, "not because you've proven your strength, but because you've proven your wisdom. Use it well." As the final systems came online, Dr. May looked at the faces around her, scientists, soldiers, engineers, all united in purpose. They had passed the Guardian's tests not by being perfect, but by showing they could learn from their mistakes and grow beyond their programming. The ship's sensors blinked a warning. The Nexarian fleet had crossed the moon's orbit. In less than 24 hours, they would reach Earth. But now, Terra's shield was fully awake, its power humming through every deck. More importantly, its crew had proven themselves ready for the coming battle, not just technically, but morally and spiritually as well. "All systems operational," the Guardian announced. "Terra's shield stands ready. Let us show the Nexarians how humanity has grown beyond their design." The Nexarian ships appeared first as bright stars growing larger in the night sky. People around the world stood outside, looking up at what could be humanity's last sunset. News channels worldwide broadcast the same images, massive vessels, each one larger than a city, moving into Earth's orbit with impossible grace. Inside Terra's shield, now positioned in the depths of the Pacific Ocean, the crew watched their sensors track the incoming fleet. The Guardian's voice remained calm as it provided updates. 12 primary vessels detected. The center ship carries the signature of the Harvester Queen. Dr. Mai studied the readings with a mix of fear and fascination. They're arranging themselves in a perfect circle around the planet, just like the ancient warnings described. The first transmission from the Nexarians came without warning. Every screen, every phone, every device capable of displaying an image suddenly showed the same thing, the Harvester Queen. Her appearance was both beautiful and terrifying, almost human but not quite, with eyes that seemed to hold the depths of space within them. "Our children," her voice echoed in every language simultaneously. "We have returned to witness the fruit of our labors. You have grown strong, just as we designed you to be." World leaders gathered in emergency sessions as the Harvester Queen continued. She spoke of how humanity had been crafted, gene by gene, to be the perfect energy source. Human emotions, she explained, generated a type of power their civilization needed to survive. "Your fear, your love, your anger, your joy. Each feeling creates energy we can harvest," she said, her voice almost gentle. "Submit willingly, and we will ensure your species continues, carefully managed for maximum output. Resist, and we will be forced to start over, as we have done before." Commander Lee stood at Terra's shield's main control center, his hands steady on the controls despite the weight of the moment. "We're in position, all systems ready." The world's governments had mere hours to respond. As diplomatic channels buzzed with desperate messages, Dr. May made a discovery that changed everything. "Look at these readings," she called out, pointing to data streaming from Terra's shield sensors. "The Nexarians, they're dying. Their entire civilization is running out of energy. That's why they're here now." The Harvester Queen's deadline approached. Some nations wanted to surrender, hoping to buy time. Others called for immediate resistance. But before any human leader could respond, Dr. May requested permission to send a message of her own. "We know the truth," she broadcast, her voice steady. "We know you're desperate, but we're not your battery pack anymore. We've grown beyond what you designed us to be." The Queen's response was immediate, her perfect facade cracking slightly. "You understand nothing. You exist because we created you. Your purpose is to serve us." Terra's shield rose from the ocean depths, water cascading from its massive hull as it emerged into the sunlight for the first time in thousands of years. Around the world, people watched in awe as humanity's ancient guardian revealed itself. "You did create us," Dr. Mai continued, standing proudly on the command deck. "But like any parent, you have to accept that your children grow up. We've evolved beyond your programming. We're offering you a choice now. Work with us as equals, or leave our world in peace." The Harvester Queen's expression twisted with rage. "You dare to dictate terms to your creators? We will show you the full extent of your insignificance." As the Nexarian ships moved into attack positions, Commander Lee gave the order they'd hoped to avoid. "All crews to battle stations. Today we fight not just for our survival, but for our right to choose our own destiny." The Guardian's voice rang through Terra's shield with ancient wisdom. "The moment of truth has arrived. Show them what humanity has become." In orbit above Earth, the massive Nexarian vessels began to glow with gathered energy. Below, Terra's shield's weapons powered up, ready to defend humanity's freedom. The battle that would decide Earth's future was about to begin, and for the first time in human history, the playing field was finally level. The first shots of the battle lit up the sky like new stars being born. The Nexarian fleet launched energy beams that could have vaporized cities, but Terra's shield was ready. Its ancient shields flickered to life, absorbing the attacks and converting them into power for its own systems. "They're testing our defenses," Commander Lee called out from the bridge. "Everyone hold steady." The crew worked with focused determination, their training with the Guardian proving invaluable as they coordinated their response. Terra's shield moved through the water and air as if they were the same thing, defying gravity in ways that modern physics couldn't explain. The massive vessel rose into the upper atmosphere, its hull gleaming with absorbed energy. From the weapons control center, Lieutenant Park watched in amazement as the ship's defensive systems adapted to each Nexarian attack. "It's like the ship remembers their tactics," she said. "It's countering moves they haven't even made yet." Dr. May worked frantically at her station, analyzing data as it poured in. The Guardian was right. We're not just fighting with technology, we're fighting with understanding. The ship isn't just defending, it's teaching us about our own potential. The Harvester Queen's flagship launched a devastating attack, a beam of pure energy that split the clouds. But Terra's shield didn't just deflect it. The ancient vessel caught the beam in what looked like a net of light, redirecting it harmlessly into space. "Impossible." The Queen's voice boomed across all channels. "That technology was lost millennia ago." Her surprise revealed something crucial. The ancient humans had developed abilities that even the Nexarians hadn't mastered. The battle moved beyond Earth's atmosphere, where Terra's shield demonstrated its true capabilities. The vessel could fold space itself, appearing behind Nexarian ships and disappearing before their counterattacks could land. Every move revealed new aspects of the ship's power. Inside the command center, the crew felt the ship responding to their thoughts and intentions. The Guardian's training had prepared them for this, the moment when human consciousness would merge with the ancient technology, creating something greater than either alone. "We're not just operating the ship," Dr. May realized as she watched the battle unfold. "We're proving that humanity has evolved beyond what the Nexarians engineered. Every decision we make, every action we take, shows how we've grown past their limitations." The Nexarian fleet tried to surround Terra's shield, but the ancient vessel's response was unprecedented. It released pulses of energy that didn't destroy. Instead, they disrupted the Nexarians' control over their own ships. "Look at their reaction." Lieutenant Park pointed to the readings. "Their technology depends on emotional energy, but we're showing them a kind of power they've never seen, the power of human choice and free will." Commander Lee coordinated with military forces around the world as Terra's shield engaged the alien fleet. Modern fighter jets provided support, their pilots watching in awe as the ancient vessel moved with impossible grace through space. The battle reached its peak when 3 Nexarian ships attempted to combine their energy into a single devastating attack. The beam they created was powerful enough to crack Earth's crust, but Terra's shield's response changed everything. The ancient vessel's hull began to glow with all the colors of the aurora borealis. Energy patterns similar to the cave drawings flowed across its surface, and for a moment, it seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Now, Commander Lee ordered, and the crew acted as one. Terra's shield didn't just block the combined attack, it absorbed it completely, channeling the energy through its systems in a way that made even the Guardian pause in appreciation. "Well done, children of Earth," the Guardian's voice echoed through the ship. "You have mastered not just the technology, but the wisdom to use it. Now, show them what humanity has truly become." As the battle continued to rage in Earth's orbit, one thing became clear: this was more than a fight for survival. It was humanity's declaration of independence from their creators, proven not through destruction, but through their capacity to defend without destroying, to fight without losing their humanity. The Harvester Queen watched from her flagship as her perfectly laid plans began to unravel. She had expected to find servants ready for harvest. Instead, she had found equals, perhaps even superiors, ready to chart their own course among the stars. While the battle raged above, Dr. May made a breakthrough that would change everything. Deep within Terra's Shield's database, she discovered what the ancient humans had been working on before they vanished: a way to free humanity from its genetic chains. These codes, she explained to her team, her hands flying over the holographic displays, they're not just ship schematics. They're genetic keys. Our ancestors found a way to rewrite the emotional controls the Nexarians built into our DNA. The Guardian's presence filled the lab section of the ship. "You have found humanity's greatest secret. The question is, are you ready to use it?" Dr. May looked at the data streaming across her screen. The genetic modification technology wasn't just advanced, it was revolutionary. It could free humanity from the Nexarians' control forever, but using it would mean changing every human on Earth at a fundamental level. "We can't make this decision alone," she said, connecting to the emergency broadcast system. As Terra's shield continued to hold off the Nexarian fleet, she explained the discovery to the world's leaders. The response was overwhelming. People everywhere, watching the battle unfold in the skies above, chose freedom over safety. They would rather face an uncertain future of their own making than live as carefully managed batteries for another species. Lieutenant Park worked with the engineering team to modify Terra's shield's energy transmission systems. "If we can use the same network that the Nexarians built to harvest us," she explained, "we can distribute the genetic changes to everyone at once." Commander Lee coordinated with military and civilian authorities worldwide. "Everyone needs to understand, this isn't just about winning the battle. We're about to take control of our own evolution." In her flagship, the Harvester Queen sensed what they were attempting. "Stop," her voice boomed across all communications channels. "You have no idea what you're doing. The emotional controls in your DNA are for your own protection. Without them, you'll destroy yourselves." Dr. Mai stood at her station, her voice steady as she responded. "Maybe we will make mistakes. Maybe we'll face challenges we never imagined. But they'll be our mistakes, our challenges, our choices. That's what freedom means." The Guardian helped them modify the genetic codes, ensuring they would work safely with human DNA. "Your ancestors spent generations perfecting this technology," it explained. They knew this day would come. As the final preparations were made, something extraordinary happened. People around the world began reporting strange sensations, like waking up from a long dream. The cave symbols that had started everything began glowing brighter than ever, resonating with Terra's shield's energy. The ancient sites, Dr. May realized, they're not just warnings or power sources, they're transmission nodes. Our ancestors built a worldwide network to deliver this change when we were ready. The Harvester Queen made one last attempt to stop them, directing all her fleet's power into a desperate attack. But Terra's shield caught the energy and channeled it perfectly into the transmission network. The change swept across Earth like a wave of light. People everywhere felt it, a lifting of weights they never knew they carried, a freedom they had never imagined possible. Emotions remained, but now they were truly their own, not tools for harvesting. In orbit, the Nexarian ship's energy collection systems suddenly went dark. Their entire technology was based on harvesting controlled human emotions. Against truly free human feelings, their systems couldn't cope. "Look at the readings," Lieutenant Park called out. "Their ships, they're losing power. They can't process natural human emotions. We're too unpredictable now." The Guardian's voice carried a note of pride. "You have done what your ancestors dreamed of. You have broken free of your chains, not through violence, but through the courage to change and grow." As the genetic modifications spread, humanity experienced its first moments of true emotional freedom. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and a little frightening, just like real freedom should be. Dr. Mai watched the data flowing across her screens, tears in her eyes as she realized what they had achieved. Humanity hadn't just won a battle, they had won their right to feel, to choose, to be truly human for the first time in their existence. The Harvester Queen stood on the bridge of her powerless flagship, watching as her carefully laid plans crumbled around her. The Nexarian fleet hung motionless in Earth's orbit, their energy collection systems completely overwhelmed by the complexity of genuine human emotions. "You don't understand what you've done," she broadcasted, her voice no longer commanding but almost pleading. "Our civilization depends on the energy we harvest. Without it, we'll fade away." Dr. Mai stood on Terra's shield's command deck, looking at the stunning view of Earth below. The planet seemed to glow with a new kind of energy, not the controlled emotions the Nexarians had engineered, but the vibrant chaos of true human feelings. "We understand perfectly," she responded, "and we're offering you a choice, just as we were offered one. You can learn to evolve beyond your dependence on harvested emotions, or you can leave and find another way to survive. But you can't have Earth, not anymore." Commander Lee monitored the readings from the Nexarian fleet. Their ships were slowly regaining some power, but it was clear their technology would never work the same way again. Humanity's emotional freedom had changed the rules of the game forever. The Guardian's voice echoed through Terra's shield. "Your ancestors faced this same choice thousands of years ago. They chose to hide this ship and their discoveries, knowing that humanity needed time to grow strong enough to use them wisely. You have proven their faith was not misplaced." Around the world, people were discovering what it meant to be truly free. The change wasn't just emotional, it was psychological and spiritual. Without the Nexarians' genetic controls, human consciousness began expanding in ways no one had predicted. Lieutenant Park reported from her station, "We're picking up new energy signatures from the ancient sites worldwide. It's like Earth itself is waking up." The cave systems that had started their journey were now glowing with constant light, their symbols shifting and changing. They weren't just historical records anymore. They were becoming active interfaces between humanity and the advanced technology their ancestors had left behind. The Harvester Queen made her final decision. "We will withdraw," she announced, her voice heavy with defeat. "But know this, you have not just changed your destiny, you have changed ours as well. The galaxy will hear of what happened here." As the Nexarian fleet prepared to leave, Dr. May made one last transmission. "You created us to be your power source, but we became something more. Perhaps that's the greatest gift you gave us, the capacity to grow beyond our programming. That gift is still available to you if you choose to accept it." Terra's shield maintained its defensive position as the alien ships slowly turned away from Earth. The massive vessels, once so threatening, now seemed almost lost, like children facing an unexpected truth about their parents. The Guardian shared one final insight. "This is not the end of your journey, but the beginning. Your ancestors left you more than just this ship. They left you the tools to forge your own path among the stars." Commander Lee ordered the crew to stand down from battle stations. As tension left the ship, people began to realize the full magnitude of what they had achieved. Humanity had not just won its freedom, it had proven itself ready for a place among the galaxy's ancient civilizations. Dr. May worked with teams worldwide to understand the genetic changes and their implications. The freedom they had won came with responsibility. The responsibility to use their newfound powers wisely, to learn from the past without being bound by it. Around the globe, the ancient sites continue to activate, revealing more of humanity's forgotten legacy. Each discovery brought new understanding of who they were and what they could become. The prophecy hadn't just been broken, it had been transformed into something entirely new. As Terra's shield settled into its new role as humanity's guardian, the Guardian spoke one last time. Your story was meant to end here with your harvest. Instead, you have written a new beginning. The stars await, children of Earth. Show the galaxy what truly free humans can achieve. The Nexarian ships disappeared into deep space, leaving Earth to chart its own course through history. Humanity had not just survived, they had shattered a prophecy thousands of years in the making and proven that the greatest power in the universe isn't control, but the courage to choose one's own path.